Welcome back to another episode of Decide to Heal. I'm your host, Alejandra Crisafulli, and there has been a topic of conversation with my clients recently, so I thought it was important for us to be able to discuss this topic. And of course, I always love this platform of being able to share these not just ideas or concepts, but things that are rooted within God's design and plan. Because you all know that if you tune into this podcast, that my mission is to bring God back into the self-help industry. And having been in the self-help industry for, now 22 years, there's a lot of brokenness. There's just a lot of things that make my soul just weep with sadness of what people are attaching themselves to and the teachings that they're leaning on instead of actually leaning on the truth and what God has given us, which is his word. I used to, look at the Bible and be like, okay, I really didn't know what it was or what to think about it. And then after meeting God, one of the biggest insights that I had was that this was a book of life. This is it. All of the answers, everything that I had ever tried to seek through self-help, anything that I was like, I am determined to get better, move beyond, be successful in, break free from, change behavior pattern, reach a vision, manifest, whatever it was. If I only had a book that could actually teach me those things, well, there is a book and I have it now, and so do you. There were so many times that I was reading that I would read something Jesus said and be like, wait, what? That came from this? That concept that this person is teaching actually came from what Jesus said? It was just so profound and eye-opening for me. And I know that God has placed in my heart, and you're seeing it so much more now. Like there's so many people that are surrendering their lives to them. People you would never have thought of actually surrendering their lives to him. And they are, and they're being very vocal about it. You see it in celebrities. You see it in influencers. You probably see it a lot in people just in your normal everyday life. And that is because there is an awakening that is occurring now that people are recognizing self-help doesn't help. Not long term. And there's a reason for that because it's not founded completely in who it is meant to be founded in, which of course is Jesus. So this topic I want to talk about today is something that separates us from him. And I know it separated you because it separated me for decades, and it separated the 5,000 plus clients that I've worked with at this point. So it's definitely something that you are struggling with. So let's talk about it. It has to do with identity. And what is your identity? Because so much of who we are is founded through identity. Are you struggling with self-doubt, second-guessing your every move, no matter how much success that you achieve? Because just deep down, nothing you have done to heal has ever felt like enough. Do you want to quit that cycle and get coached live on Decide to Heal? Because in 45 minutes or less, I can help you identify the root cause of the problem you are dealing with and give you not just practical, but long-term changes that you can implement as soon as we're done. This is completely free of charge, and all you have to do is fill out the application in the description below. So your identity has to be rooted in something. Like that's the whole concept or idea of identity. It's rooted into an actual something. The definition of identity is and can be understood on multiple levels. There's psychological, cultural, and spiritual levels. So here's basically a layered breakdown of the general definition of identity. Identity is the condition or the character that makes a person who they are. It's your sense of self, how you perceive yourself, and how you believe others perceive you. Now, the psychological definition is that a person's sense of who they are based on characteristics like values, beliefs, personality, experiences, and roles. It basically shapes behavior and motivation and how someone navigates life. So let's break that down and just make it super simple. Your identity is basically a sense of self, a sense of worth. And that worth is usually driven by feeling good about yourself, doing things that make you feel good about yourself. So we live in this individualistic culture where you determine who you want to be. What matters to you? You decide, I want to do this and I want to do that. And then you go out and you do it. So this, of course, becomes actually a vicious cycle of trying to make yourself feel good by the identity that is driven by self and by worth. Now, in traditional self-help models, this is typically the way people are being coached or are being led. Find happiness in self-love. Like the answer is self-love. Create contentment with success. Be a driver for your success. Be motivated for that and be content within success. Find joy in your possessions or create value and worth through doing for others so that you're acknowledged or you're heard. And some of those things you might think like, okay, but those are healthy things, Alejandra. Yeah, but not if they're to enable a sense of worth so that you have an identity of self-worth. So that's where it becomes unhealthy and not, I mean, obviously if it's unhealthy, it's not good for you at all, but it also keeps you separate from God. And you and I both know that if you're here, you're really sick of the cycles. You're sick of all the other stuff that's out there because you're finding your identity in anything other than God. Anything that is outside of God is worthless. I mean, let's just be honest, truth tell here. Like it is worthless if your identity or anything that you're identifying with is outside of God. Yet we do it anyways. You know, I am definitely a culprit of that. Like I am not at all exempt from this. I do it anyways. You do it anyways. We do it anyways, because in this world, there's a very human aspect to it, right? I've shared with you the difference between human and being, and everything in this human world has to have an identity. In other words, everything in the physical world has to have identity. So here's the other layer to identity that I want to talk about. If you're not driving, okay, don't do this if you're driving, but if you're not, I want you to take a look around your room, your space, wherever you're sitting, listening to this podcast. And I know you don't know what it is you're actually looking for, but I want you to just look around your room for a moment here. Is there anything in your space, in that room that you're sitting in, standing in, laying down in, that you cannot identify? Is there anything? Is there anything that you cannot identify? Now, most likely you're like, no, they're everything. Everything in the physical world has an identity. My cup, my paper, pen, microphone, shirt, earrings, necklace, like everything. Everything has an identity, whether it's a physical thing or a non-physical thing. So obviously the physical things have an identity, but the non-physical things also have an identity. Like the words that are coming out of my mouth, there's an energy to them. You can't see the energy. You can feel the energy. And if I started talking like this, you would be like, oh my gosh, she is super angry. Or if I was super low and kind of soft like this, you would also be giving that an identity. So think of identity as like a name, a label. We give names, labels, identity to everything in this physical world, whether it's actually a tangible physical thing or a non-physical thing. Now, there are two main reasons why we do this. The first reason is that if we don't know what something is, then we're afraid of it. Think about going to the dentist. I have to go to the dentist in 2 days and not looking forward to it. So go with me on this analogy because I'm sure there's a lot of you out there who can relate to this. But you go to the dentist and there on that silver platter is all these accoutrements of who knows what. And they look really scary. And you're like, oh my gosh, what is that? And as soon as the dental hygienist is like, it's just a water pick, you're like, oh, okay. All right. That's fine. It makes it safe at that point. So once something has a name or a label, then we're not afraid of it anymore. Like my pen. If I didn't know what this pen was, it's like, oh my gosh, there's this thing that comes out of it and stuff that like marks up. And yeah, it's like, what is that? Oh my goodness. So that's number one reason why we give a name, a label, or an identity to everything. The second reason, which is more important to you, is actually that if something doesn't have an identity, actually, hold on. Let me share it as an example. Let me use my pen again. Let's say that I didn't know what this pen was. You didn't know what this pen was. And no one in the whole entire world knew what pens were. What would happen to pens? They would disappear. They would cease to exist. Why? Because they would have no use to them. What use are they if we don't know what they are? So if something doesn't have an identity, then it has no use and it would cease to exist. This is the second reason why we give identity, name, a label to everything. And my friend, you are no different. You give yourself an identity for the same two reasons. Now, I want to go deeper into this, but first, I want to share with you that there are 7 forms of identity that we take on as human beings. So many people unconsciously adopt one of these 7 false identities. And you can actually do more than just one, but there's one that you identify with the most. You can also think of identity as the role. Okay. So these identities or roles are actually taken on as an attempt for us to feel worthy, safe, accepted. Again, going back to that need for the self-worth. The first identity that we unconsciously can take on is the achiever. So the achiever is basically your worth is tied to success, productivity, and performance. It's kind of like, if I can just do enough, I'll be enough. That's that mentality of this achiever. If I can just do enough, then I'll be enough. And that often leads to, of course, burnout, perfectionism, and a deep fear of failure. So if you fear failing, if you're stuck in the perfectionism and you're just like, I'm just so overwhelmed all the time and just totally burned out, you most likely have the achiever identity. The second identity that we take on is the caretaker people pleaser. So with this identity, basically the worth comes from meeting everyone else's needs first. It's that mentality of like, if they're happy with me, then I must be good. I must be okay. Everything's fine. Again, I have worth. And what this does is it ends up resulting in resentment. You actually have a loss of identity because you're kind of like, who am I? And there's a lack of boundaries, a lack of standards that you stand for, and you just let people kind of just walk all over you. But it for sure, at least, is an identity of like, I'm a good person. I'm this caretaker, a people pleaser. Now, the third one is the strong one identity. So this one is for those who are always composed, always handling everything. Like, I think about clients who are going through a really hard time, maybe an illness of a loved one or a death of a loved one. And they're like, I just have to hold it all together for everyone else. I can't fall apart. I can't show people quote unquote weakness. I'm the strong one. I have to keep everyone together in the family. That kind of mentality. And my worth comes from being one who holds it all together. And what this does is it creates an emotional isolation and basically blocks vulnerability. And y'all, vulnerability is a beautiful, powerful thing. Jesus demonstrated this for us all the time. But for this strong one identity, oh, forget it. Nope. Can't be vulnerable. Need to be the strong one. The fourth identity is the rebel. This was me for sure. My worth is found in doing the opposite of what's expected. I remember this one time, this is silly, but at Disneyland, I am not a Disneyland person. There's many people who just love Disneyland, and I think that's amazing, but that is not me. And we had a really long day, and I was with my daughter and my sister and her kids, and we had gotten split up because we went to go watch the show at the castle. And the show is over, and I see my sister just on the other side of this rope that is like kind of cutting off one section from the next. And really, if I just stepped over the rope, we would be maybe like 20 steps from my sister and the family, so we could keep going on with our day. So there's a lady who works at Disneyland right there standing in front of the rope, and I grab Mia's hand and I'm like, let's go. We're going to just climb over, just step over the rope. And literally, y'all, it was just like a little step over the rope. And so I start to go towards the rope, and the lady's like, you can't come this way. And she puts her hands in my face and like, you can't come this way. You have to go around. Well, there's a massive crowd of everyone going around, and going around would have literally taken us at least 30 to 45 minutes because of the crowd and the length of how we had to walk around. I was like, no, our party is right over there. I am definitely going this way. And she's like, no, you're not. And I'm like, watch me. And guess what I did? I took me and we climbed right over that rope. And she was like, oh my gosh, Mom, total rebel. Anyhow, I digress with this, giving you an example, but that worth is definitely found in doing the opposite of what others are expecting you to do. It's kind of like, if I don't conform, I prove that I am strong. I prove that I'm different and therefore valuable. And this one is often rooted in unhealed rejection or control wounds, which was, yeah, for sure me. So the fifth one is the chameleon. Oh, I was this too, and I see this a lot with my clients as well. So the chameleons adopts to who others want them to be in every environment, just like whatever they think someone else wants them to be, that's what I'm going to be. And it's that mentality of like, if I fit in, I'm safe. If I fit in, then I belong. If I fit in, then I'm worthy, which of course leads to loss of identity as well. And this like constant anxiety because you're constantly just trying to like find yourself, but through someone else's identity. Which really doesn't make any sense, because if you're living into someone else's identity, then you're like stepping into somebody else's dysfunction in one of their identities. It just doesn't make sense, which is why that constant anxiety is so impactful in this particular identity. So it doesn't work. Now, number 6 is the fixer. And the fixer feels valuable when solving everyone else's problems. It's like a hero. Like they're constantly hearing other people, trying to fix it all. And there's this mentality of, if I'm needed, if I'm important, then I feel valuable. And yes, I belong, I'm worthy, all of those things. So it's like I need to be needed kind of thing. And what this does is it creates codependency and basically avoids personal healing because you're just constantly worrying about everyone else. So you never have to focus in on yourself. Now, the seventh is the victim. This identity ties worth to pain or suffering and being seen, basically being pitted or supported. Like, it's like you thrive off of the attention of being pitied. Excuse me. I said that wrong earlier. Pitied. There's this mentality with this one that if people feel bad for me, then I matter. And think about that. It's like that sucking energy almost of like, feel bad for me. But really it's coming from, I just need to know that I matter to you. This one can unconsciously recreate hardships so that you stay significant. So it's almost like you're creating your own insanity so that you stay significant. Any one of these identities will never work. They will never get you what you want in life, which is to feel worthy and valuable, because you're trying to gain something through an avenue that it doesn't belong to. Worth, value, safety, acceptance, all those things that you are seeking through taking on these identities will not come from that. It never will. It never has. And you know that for truth because you've been doing one, if not more, of these identities in your life, and you still don't feel worth, safe, approved, acknowledged, accepted, any of those things, right? So these identities don't come from who we truly are. They come from who we've learned to be. And they're basically developed over time, usually in childhood or through repeated emotional experiences when our worth, your safety, love, or belonging felt super uncertain. So we created these roles, these identities to protect ourselves, to get approval, to avoid pain, and to gain connection. And they've just become survival strategies, but they're not rooted in truth. I think you really get that now. They're rooted in fear. They're rooted in unmet needs and ultimately ego. The ego is the part of us that tries to control our environment in order to feel safe, in order to feel worthy or accepted. And ego is what edges God out. It's built on perception, not divine truth. So all of these identities, it really does connect back to the ego. I'm going to do a whole episode on just the ego that you're going to want to tune into because there's so many layers to the ego. This was just a starting point for us to discuss. But this is why we go to these places of thinking that we need to do stuff on our own. We think that the only way we can feel safe, the only way we can feel good, worthy, accepted is through these identities and doing it all on our own, all through the self. That's why things like self-help, self-development, self-improvement, self-empowerment, all the self, but self is separated from God, the greatest power, the one true person that can actually give us worth. The ego separates you from God and it takes on all those identities. So it brings up this question, at least for me, hopefully you're thinking about this too, is how do you get rid of the identity because you're not going to get rid of the ego. That's for sure. Ego is not going anywhere. If you are a human being, you have an ego and always will, which, by the way, sidebar for a second, but I hear clients ask this question, or they're saying like, but I don't have an ego. Yes, you do. If you're a human being, you do have an ego. There's a difference between egotistical and ego. Okay. So the question of how do you get rid of the identity? Well, you don't. You don't. Let that sink in for a minute. You don't get rid of the identity, nor do you want to or need to. So that probably sounds very counterintuitive, that you wouldn't want to get rid of these and that you don't want to or need to. So let's start with the first one. Why don't you need to get rid of them? Well, let me use my pen. I'm holding my pen again. Let's use the pen as the analogy. The pen could want to be a pencil. It could want to take on the identity of a pencil, but will this pen ever be a pencil? No, it's never going to be that because the identity has already been given, which is pen. It will never be a pencil. So that's number one reason. The reason you don't want to try and get rid of these is because if you're trying to get rid of them, guess what you're doing? You're resisting them, and anything that you resist will persist. If you've never heard that before, let this sink in. Whatever you resist will persist. Don't think about your nose right now. Whatever you do, do not think about your nose. Don't you dare do it. Don't you even think about your nose. What are you thinking about? Your nose. Because you have to think about something in order to not think about it. And then it creates just all this energy of resistance, and it will continue to persist. So these identities are already strong enough on their own. We don't need to be going into more resistance of them because they're already in a way dominating in your life. We don't want to make them more dominant. Okay. So the third is you don't need to get rid of these because you can have the identity and be free from it. Okay, so basically you can have these identities and be free from them through connecting to your real identity. You see, this problem of these identities, the problem isn't that you have an identity. The problem is that you're giving your identity over to something false, to a lie, to something that is ego-based and human-driven. You're seeking worth through it, when in reality, your worth does not come through the identity. You actually already have a true identity where all worth actually comes from. And this true identity is far more superior than these other ones. It is far more powerful because it is founded in the actual truth. You see, the ego is going to look for the identity because you actually need to have identity while you're here, but we've already got the identity. So ego is actually using a mechanism that it knows as truth, but it's twisting it into something false and seeking its own form of identity because it does not understand the true identity. That may have been a little bit of a mind twist, but that's how it is. It's like it can't understand your true identity, which I'm going to share what that is in a second. It doesn't understand the true identity. So it goes and tries to find its own identity because it doesn't get the true identity. So what is the true identity that ego does not get? Daughter. Daughter. Made in God's image. That is your true identity. So how do you get there? How do you get there when all these other 7 identities are there and they're just so a part of your everyday life? Healing. My friend, it's through healing. And how do you heal? Well, it's such a great question. And there's actually a formula I teach in the 180 method called literally the healing formula because it teaches you how to heal. But I'll give you the ending of the formula because that's the most important part to it. The ending of it is ownership. So all healing leads to a place of ownership. And the reason all healing leads to a place of ownership is this. What you don't own will always own you. So right now, these identities are owning you because you haven't had healing of the things that are causing you to seek value, worth, approval from outside factors. So once you take ownership of those things, you no longer need the identity. You follow me? I hope so. And if you have any questions around this, I share this. Give me a comment, send me a DM, shoot me an email, find me on social media. You can find me anywhere at the Baller Coach and ask your questions so that I can support you through that. So I'm going to leave you with this. I want you to take a moment and ask yourself, which of these false identities have you worn to try and feel worthy? Because now you know the truth. Now you know that none of them are ever going to satisfy that deep ache to be seen, to be known, to be loved, that thing that ego so wants and doesn't get, how it's just already yours. Okay. They're survival strategies, not soul solutions. But your true identity, it's not something you perform for. It's something you return to, the one God designed for you, the one that you are, daughter. He designed this for you before the world even named you anything else, before you even named yourself anything else. And until you root your worth in Him and heal those things that have separated you from Him, the cycle's always going to continue. So healing is going to start when you stop performing for the worth and you start getting to that place of looking for that ownership. Okay. Start receiving it from the one who already gave it to you. All right, my friend. This was a deep conversation. I feel like in our solo episodes, we go a lot deeper. I love getting to share this 180 work with you, and I hope you're enjoying it too, and that it's speaking to you. It's deep. It's rich. There's so much to it. And I know that when you're consciously present to this conversation, you are going to have profound transformation and shifts that are only going to deepen and bring your relationship to God to a whole nother level. So share this with a loved one. Make sure that you download, like, and comment on whatever platform you're listening to. And my friend, I just appreciate you. I love you. I thank you for being here and spending this time with me. And I can't wait to see you on another episode of Decide to Heal. Until next time.